I am damn sure that Madeleine McCann was not abducted.
Wow, what do you think happened then?
I tend to agree with the Portuguese police.
If she died then, how could we have disposed or hidden her body, when there was an immediate threat? It's just nonsense. So, and if she died when we were in there...
And I just looked, and it was quite dark, and I was just looking at Madeleine's bed, and I was thinking, is that her? I was looking for, why is that Madeleine there?
Hello everyone, and welcome. As a seasoned crime analyst and storyteller, I'm here to unravel the complex details of true crime cases and present them in a way that's both engaging and easy to understand. Today, we're diving deep into the latest developments in the Madeleine McCann case. 17 years, one child, and now, bones. What was once a peaceful seaside retreat has become an active forensic crime scene. Beneath the weathered sand, a secret is beginning to surface. They didn't just find scraps of fabric. They found human remains. And most chilling of all, a confession long buried behind prison walls is beginning to seep into the light. For 17 years, the Madeleine McCann case has been a maze of theories and doubt. But this time, something feels different. We have strong evidence that Madeleine McCann is deceased, and that our suspect is responsible for her death. Is the truth finally rising from the ground, or is this just another mirage, another cruel illusion in a case that has swallowed the world's hope for far too long? Some crimes are loud, chaotic, and unmistakable. This one was silent. On the evening of May 3, 2007, a peaceful holiday in Praia da Luz turned into a global nightmare. The McCann family had spent the day like any other: sunlight, laughter, routine. By 8:30 p.m., Kate and Gerry McCann tucked their 3 children into bed inside apartment 5A of the Ocean Club Resort. Madeleine, age 3, fell asleep beside her cuddle cat and pink Eeyore pajamas. Her twin siblings, younger and still toddlers, lay sleeping nearby. Then her parents walked out the door. Just 100 yards away, the Topo's bar offered food, conversation, and familiarity. Every 20 minutes, they returned to check on the kids. It was a pattern, a system, one they believed was safe. But at 10 p.m., the illusion shattered. Kate opened the bedroom door and Madeleine was gone. I then decided I'd open the door just a little bit again, and that was when I looked in, and it was dark, Kate recalled. So I went through up to our bedroom, and when she wasn't there, that was when the panic first set in. And as I rushed back into the children's bedroom, that was the point, and I guess it was chance. It just had to be a gust of wind that suddenly the curtains that were closed over just... No broken glass, no screams, no sign of forced entry. 2 babies undisturbed in their cots. Just an open window and an empty bed. And yet, the shutters had been lifted from the outside. The timeline was intact, witnesses had seen nothing, and the resort was busy. Still, no one heard a thing. Whoever took Madeleine moved like a shadow. The stakes were impossible to overstate. Within hours, her disappearance spiraled from a local emergency to an international manhunt. Journalists swarmed the town. Police launched coordinated operations across 3 countries, and still no trace of Madeleine. Only the image remained. A soft toy left on the bed, a pair of small pink pajamas burned into collective memory, and a window that opened not just into a bedroom, but into one of the darkest and most enduring mysteries of our time. 17 years later, investigators still returned to that room. That night. That silence. Because whatever truth exists in this case, it begins here. Investigators working on the Madeleine McCann case have started a 3rd day of searches. It is 18 years since Madeleine went missing in Praia da Luz in Portugal. German police who are investigating her disappearance have been allowed access to the land after receiving a tip-off. Sometimes the evil hiding among us isn't buried in shadow. It's parked just outside the frame. In 2007, while the McCann's nightmare unfolded behind the whitewashed walls of apartment 5A, just a short drive away, sat a camper van. Inside it, a man watched. Christian Brueckner, a German drifter with a haunting trail of crimes. Brueckner wasn't new to this region. Years earlier, in 2005, he broke into a nearby villa and assaulted a 72-year-old American woman in a cruel and calculated way. He tied her up, filmed the event, then vanished. Portuguese authorities failed to connect him to the crime until it was far too late. By 2007, Brueckner was back, living near Praia da Luz. And on May 3rd, just as the McCann sat down to dinner, his phone lit up. A call came in, and it pinged a nearby cell tower, the one closest to Madeleine's apartment. But this wasn't just coincidence. When German investigators began retracing his movements, a pattern emerged. That same year, Brueckner had re-registered a Jaguar under another name, not to cover his tracks, but to quietly distance himself from a car that, according to reports, held forensic potential. And still, there was no arrest. In 2020, German prosecutors broke their silence. They named Brueckner the prime suspect in Madeleine McCann's disappearance. More than that, they claimed they had concrete evidence he was responsible for her death. "We have strong evidence that Madeleine McCann is deceased and that our suspect is responsible for her death." It was the boldest statement yet. After 13 years of silence, the world leaned in. But the next part was silence again. No charges, no trial, no public release of what that evidence actually was. And that's where suspicion gave way to frustration. If Brueckner truly was the one, they had the name, the timeline, even a signal placing him near the crime scene. Then why hadn't justice moved forward? The answer lies buried in the same uncertainty that's plagued this case from the beginning. No eyewitness, no confession, no body. Just a man with a past steeped in cruelty. A man who preyed on the vulnerable, who moved between countries using false names, who knew how to disappear. And now, if no new charges emerge, that man, Christian Brueckner, could be released as early as September 2025. The clock is ticking for German prosecutors, for investigators, for a family that's waited 17 years, and for a world still trying to answer one agonizing question. If Brueckner truly holds the key to what happened that night, then what exactly is stopping it from turning? In the spring of 2023, 17 years after Madeleine vanished, investigators returned to Portugal with renewed urgency. This time their focus shifted inland, 30 miles east of the Ocean Club Resort, to the remote, windswept shores of the Arade Dam. It began with a tip, unconfirmed, mysterious, but precise enough to send forensic teams to the reservoir's edge, where low water levels and isolated terrain concealed secrets untouched for decades. For 3 days, the site was locked down. Police combed the earth, drones scanned from above, and cadaver dogs were deployed, trained to detect even the faintest trace of human remains. And then, nothing. Not a bone, not a shoe, not a scrap of clothing. The excavation yielded no evidence, only the sound of shifting dirt and the deafening silence of hopes unraveling once more. For the public, it was a familiar sting. Another build-up, another media storm, and then another hole in the ground that led nowhere. Criticism grew louder. Had authorities overreached? Was this truly a credible lead or desperation masquerading as progress? Behind the scenes, German prosecutors felt the weight of that disappointment. Their public statements had carried confidence, assertions that they were certain Christian Brueckner was involved. But without charges and now without physical evidence, skepticism took root. The pressure was no longer just investigative. It was political, reputational, global. But for seasoned investigators, the absence of a discovery didn't equal failure. It ruled out a location. It tested the theory. It narrowed the search zone. In a case where every step has been measured in inches, not miles, even a negative result can bring focus. Still, for the families, the followers, and the world that has watched this mystery stretch across generations, the 2023 reservoir dig was a reminder of the case's brutal reality. That finding the truth isn't just about what we uncover. It's also about what remains missing. 17 years after a child vanished without a trace, investigators returned to the soil of Praia da Luz and began to dig. But this wasn't just another search. It was different. This time, sharper, more urgent. It began quietly in June 2025, just outside the Atalaya area, in a remote stretch of land not far from where Christian Brueckner once lived in a dilapidated camper van, an area locals had long since learned to avoid, overgrown, silent, and now the center of a renewed storm. Under the burning Portuguese sun, teams of officers arrived with precision. Police tape wrapped around dry brush and cracked stone, drones hovered overhead. Below, machines that could read the secrets of the earth. Ground-penetrating radar, seismic sensors, and excavation gear designed to lift not just soil, but decades of silence. They weren't chasing shadows this time. They were looking for remains. Within days, word spread. Items had been recovered. The press called them potentially significant. What they actually were: clothes, bones, and something else. Unidentified objects, bagged and flown under armed transport to forensic labs in Germany. It was the first time in years that hope felt tangible, but also terrifying, because if these fragments truly belonged to Madeleine McCann, then the answer so many had feared might finally be within reach. The search site was vast, over 20 privately owned plots cleared and scanned in meticulous grids. Cadaver dogs were brought in, soil samples taken, and forensic tents emerged like scars across the landscape. This wasn't symbolic. This was serious. And the location was chosen for a reason. The land once belonged to an acquaintance of Brueckner's, someone known to have lent him access, a place where he may have spent time, camped, hidden, watched. So the question was no longer why they were digging, but what had been left behind. Yet despite the dramatic headlines and cautious optimism, officials have made one thing clear. No direct link to Madeleine has been confirmed. Not yet. The bone fragments, not a full skeleton, are being analyzed for age and origin. The clothing, degraded by time and elements, is being tested for trace DNA. The objects, still unnamed publicly, are being evaluated for context, timeline, and forensic traceability. And still, the world waits. There's a delicate tension now, because this dig, more than any before it, has the potential to close a chapter, but also to devastate. To finally move the McCann case from mystery into tragedy, from theory into confirmation. German investigators are treading carefully. Their message to the public is clear: patience, caution. But privately, sources suggest confidence that this time, the soil may have finally whispered a name. He was a convicted child predator when Madeleine McCann disappeared, right? And he never got into focus. So how can it be that there's a convicted child predator living close by, close proximity, few kilometers, and it was like the first, but not by far, not the last mistake that has been made? It's too early to know. The evidence is still undergoing rigorous scrutiny. But make no mistake, this was not a routine exercise. It was a deliberate, highly targeted excavation based on new intelligence. Someone said something. Someone pointed. and authorities listened. So now we wait for the results from the lab, for the connection, or lack of it, for the one piece of evidence that could turn suspicion into certainty. Because somewhere, buried in the dry Portuguese earth, may lie the truth that has eluded the world for almost 2 decades. And if that truth has finally begun to surface, nothing about this case will ever be the same again. In 2004, a young Irish woman was living her dream abroad until the night it turned into a nightmare. I seen a man. He was all dressed in black. He had a black mask on, and he was holding a knife. In a quiet apartment near the Algarve coast, she was ambushed. A masked man broke in, bound her with rope, and committed a violent assault while recording the entire event on video. It was not just violence. It was sadism. Cold, calculated, depraved. Her name was Hazel B. And so my hands are still tied behind my back, and I had to put my head onto the bench, and he positions me in that way, and went and got a sheet from my bed, and draped the sheet over me, and he stood above me with a knife, so I just thought he was gonna just chop my head off. That sounds so dramatic, but that's exactly what was going through my head. She reported everything to the Portuguese police, every detail, every trauma. But the case stalled. Leads went nowhere. Her assailant was never found, and the years moved on as they so often do for survivors, while justice stays frozen in time. Then, in 2020, Hazel saw his face. The man being named as the prime suspect in the Madeleine McCann case, Christian Bruckner, wasn't just familiar. He fit everything: the location, the timeline, the method. Her blood ran cold. Bruckner had already been convicted of another similar violent act against an elderly American woman, this one just 18 months after Hazel's, with the victim tied up and violated inside her own home near Praia da Luz. He had filmed that attack too. Hazel's heart sank. What if her case had been solved? What if police had acted sooner, connected the dots between these victims, this predator, and his pattern? She went public not for recognition, but because she believed a horrific truth, that if the system had listened, then Madeleine might still be alive. I'm really angry. I'm angry, so angry that they didn't believe me. I'm hurt by that. You know, I was a 20-year-old young girl on my own in a foreign country. I left the hospital that day, that morning in Portugal, to nobody, not even a police officer. It wasn't just a survivor's story. It was a revelation. Her voice reignited scrutiny of Bruckner's past. It exposed the chilling consistency of his crimes, the geographical overlap, the cruelty, the confidence with which he operated. He wasn't a shadow. He was hiding in plain sight. And suddenly, Bruckner wasn't just a suspect in Madeleine's disappearance. He became a symbol of missed warnings, of what happens when one woman's screams go unanswered. Hazel's testimony didn't just reopen old wounds. It lit a fire beneath an investigation that had gone cold too many times. And with it came the chilling question investigators can no longer ignore. How many more were there? It began, as so many revelations do, not with a headline, but with a whisper behind prison walls. Far from the public eye, someone claimed to hear the words that could finally unravel a mystery that's haunted the world for 17 years. A confession, not shouted, not documented, but spoken, perhaps carelessly, perhaps deliberately, by a man who has long lurked at the center of this tragedy, Christian Bruckner. German prosecutors didn't release transcripts. They didn't name the source. But they confirmed what the world had quietly feared and secretly hoped. Someone had come forward alleging that Bruckner had admitted to being involved in Madeleine McCann's disappearance. But what exactly did he say? That remains locked away. Theories swirl like smoke. Was it an outright confession, or a veiled comment dropped in a moment of bravado? Did he gloat, hint, threaten, or simply speak too freely, forgetting that even walls have ears? And then comes the blow that deflates hope, at least for now. The statement, whatever it contains, isn't admissible in court. Not yet. Without supporting evidence, it exists in limbo, too provocative to ignore, too fragile to stand alone. A phantom confession caught between hearsay and truth. Still, investigators are paying attention, because this isn't just a new thread, it's a potential turning point. If true, it may reveal how close Bruckner has been all along. Yes, kindergarten and junior school. There's a kindergarten and a junior school next door. They spent their pocket money on sweets here. He gave the kids lollies for free. Living in his camper van, just miles from where Madeleine vanished. A convicted sex offender with a long, violent history. A man who once harmed a 72-year-old woman in that same region and filmed the assault. And now, possibly the source of a confession that could change everything, if only it could be proven. The stakes couldn't be higher. Bruckner's release looms. The investigation clock is winding down. For prosecutors, this is more than a legal puzzle. It's a desperate race to corroborate a whisper before it disappears into silence. It would be much better if we have a video, or if we have a DNA or something like that, but we haven't. And so we have to work with this evidence we have, and we think it's enough. And we will see if the court will have the same opinion. Because if there was even a sliver of truth in that alleged confession, then the world might be closer than ever to uncovering what really happened to Madeleine McCann. Or it may be the closest we ever come. It began as a local mystery, a missing girl, a shattered family, a quiet resort town thrust into sudden chaos. But within hours, the story of Madeleine McCann ignited across the globe like wildfire. It wasn't just news, it became the news. From the cobbled streets of Praia da Luz to newsroom floors in London, Berlin, Sydney, and Tokyo, cameras rolled and speculation spread. Headlines screamed, helicopters circled, and for the first time in modern media history, the disappearance of a single child gripped nearly every continent at once. For weeks it dominated every front page, every prime-time slot. The child's face, wide-eyed, full of innocence, became one of the most recognized images on the planet. But as public sympathy swelled, so did a darker current: suspicion. The McCanns, once grieving parents, found themselves under a microscope. Their every movement was analyzed, every expression dissected. Were they too composed, too rehearsed? Why had they left the children alone? Why hadn't the windows shattered? And so the world chose sides. Some defended the parents relentlessly, raising millions to support their search. Others whispered accusations behind screens and in tabloids, fueled by theories that only grew stranger as days passed without answers. Then came the documentaries, the books, the Netflix specials, the YouTube rabbit holes, millions of hours of content created, consumed, and obsessed over, all orbiting around a single unresolved night in 2007. But with every retelling, the story blurred. The lines between fact and fiction twisted under the weight of attention. What began as a desperate search became, for some, entertainment, for others, a crusade, and for the family at the center of it all, an unbearable spotlight that never switched off. 17 years later, the frenzy hasn't faded. It's evolved. Investigators release updates, and the internet erupts. A new suspect is named, and timelines are redrawn. A dig begins, and hashtags trend worldwide, because the story of Madeleine McCann is no longer just a case. It's a symbol, a global obsession. And until the truth is found, the world won't look away. 17 years after the world first saw Madeleine McCann's face on the evening news, the man believed to be her abductor, Christian Bruckner, remains uncharged. The suspect at the center of the storm, the man German prosecutors say killed her, is still legally untouched by her case. But that may soon change, or it may not, because time is running out. Bruckner's current prison sentence, linked to unrelated offenses, is nearing its end. If no formal charges are filed in the Madeleine McCann investigation, he could walk free as early as September 2025. After nearly 2 decades of waiting, the clock is louder than ever. And for the investigators who've devoted years to chasing shadows and false leads, failure is no longer an option. Authorities say they're closer than ever. Behind the scenes, German prosecutors are working with forensic specialists, witness testimony, and physical evidence gathered from recent digs. There's urgency in their tone, but also caution, because speculation cannot convict, and suspicion, no matter how loud, cannot substitute for proof. They claim to have evidence he killed Madeleine, but the public has yet to see it, and the courts have yet to accept it. We haven't found a body, or parts of a body, but we have enough evidence to say our suspect killed Madeleine McCann. There's a quiet fear among those watching closely. Not that Bruckner is innocent, but that a conviction might never come. That years of investigation might end not with justice, but with a procedural expiration date. And if that happens, it won't just be a legal failure. It will be a blow to every person who believed this mystery could one day be solved. The stakes aren't theoretical anymore. They're marked on a calendar. In the coming weeks, every lab result, every phone record, every overlooked witness could become decisive. It's a race now, not just for justice, but for time itself, because once the doors open and Bruckner steps outside, the question won't be whether he did it. It'll be whether we missed our last chance to hold him accountable, and whether the truth about Madeleine McCann will vanish once again, just like she did on that quiet spring night in Portugal. 17 years, dozens of theories, hundreds of headlines, and yet no closure. But now, perhaps for the first time, something feels different. A new dig, forensic samples sent for analysis, a woman from the past stepping forward with chilling testimony, and a whispered jailhouse confession that may finally connect the dots. It's not proof, not yet, but it's more than we've had in years. The question is, will it be enough? Or will this case, like so many before it, slip once more into silence, with the truth remaining buried in the shadows of Praia da Luz, just out of reach? How does the possibility of Bruckner's release make you feel? What action do you think we, as a global community, can or should take to support the McCann family and push for a resolution in this case? Or do you think that after all this time, we are destined to never know the full truth?